video games are the future, especially sports video games. And one way for sports leagues to grow their young audience has to be through video games. You're either doing it through esports, you're either doing it through making your own sports gaming franchise, which is already happening. But you still have to use that as the tool to grow externally. Let's think about all the YouTube streamers that we see that run the franchise modes. I know I'm probably repeating myself here, but this is all valid information. Think about the franchise modes, the career modes, the online modes, everything that's involved with what kind of content that these YouTubers and Twitch streamers are putting out. And I actually find enjoyment of this. I think they're starting to get a lot more creative now because they know that it's a hot market. It's a hot market to be a game streamer, and knowing that that's one way that sports leagues can capitalize on on trying to get external marketing through game streamers. How's it going, OFPs? And welcome to another episode of the Off-Field Players Podcast. I'm your host, Phil Paul, and I hope everybody had an awesome weekend. I know my weekend was relaxing. I had some downtime to get off, and I know I've been gone for a couple of weeks. I had to, work on some projects, and also, last week I couldn't come in and do a show because it was Easter break, and that St. John's is a Catholic school. We, of course, take another extra day off for the Easter holidays. But I hope everybody had an amazing Easter if you do celebrate it. And just happy to be back. And my days are numbered here at St. John's. About almost a month away from graduation. So it's my time here at St. John's is slowly winding down, but I will say that it has been very rewarding, and I'm still going to be pumping out as many episodes as I can up until graduation. So, make sure to be on the lookout. Make sure to stay tuned in and be updated on when I drop a new episode. So, just keep supporting the podcast. Again, I put all the episodes on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor, and, of course, the video version if you're watching that, like, how you are now. Or if you're not, I always have it on YouTube. Make sure to, still say support. We're still growing the OFP family over here. But today I thought this episode I wanted to do something a little bit fun. So over the break, I should say over the break. But sometime last week I was really thinking about, just the video game, environment of sports. And what we're going to talk about on today's episode is just why sports leagues need a video game franchise and why, why we love sports gaming so much. Because, for me personally, growing up, I've always, played sports video games. I mean, I was huge on MLB The Show. I played FIFA. I played all the NASCAR games when EA Sports was still producing them. Played the mess out of MLB The Show and all the NASCAR games. I played a little bit of 2K here and there, but I was more of an NBA Live guy, or even on Madden as well. I was huge. I was playing all of them. But I think it would be really cool to kind of do an episode on that and just how it does have some kind of effect to the sports industry. Because if we think about how the landscape is now with esports or just sports gaming titles coming out consecutively each year, I thought it would be something to touch on a little bit, just as far as something to talk about. Because just think about it. Think about how relationships have been formed when it came to sports gaming. I remember days where we would have battles in the dorms for on 2K or on FIFA on MLB The Show. We would be playing for who had to do the dishes or something like that. Or I'm sure this is common around college campuses all across the country. You're with your buddies and you're popping 2K or Madden and MLB The Show, go up against each other and play for who had to do the dishes, who had to buy food for the crew, who had to like clean everybody's rooms or something like that. Like just the wagers that would be put down when you would go after against your buddy on a sports game. And that's the fun of it. That's just really the fun that you get, especially like in my generation, Generation Z. Practically our whole fandom for sports was built off of sports gaming. Really, since we bought our first gaming console. Growing up, I was a PlayStation guy growing up. That was where I would spend time, playing my sports games on the systems, and it was fun. It was a good time, and it's still being utilized to this day. Especially when we see how much sports gaming has brought to just the general fandom of young people. And what I mean by that is that like when you think about how young people are, being entertained through sports, we've always been considered that generation that just like to watch the highlights, through social media. It could be coming from an example of, say I'm scrolling through Instagram and I see say for example, since the NBA playoffs are going on right now, I'm seeing John Morant go after a dunk, or I'm seeing Stephen Curry pull back and hit a three, but we don't really that's really all the stuff that we need when it comes to keeping up with coverage of the playoffs. Some of us don't really take the time to sit back and watch the games, and I guess if you're somebody like myself. I almost don't even have time to, remind myself, okay, the Suns and the Mavericks are playing at this time, okay, or the Kings and Warriors are coming on this time, yeah, sure. The Sixers and the Nets are going to be on tonight. I just sometimes people just don't have the time to remind themselves to tune into the game. But I feel like with sports gaming, what it has done for me personally is that I love, and knowing me trying to become a YouTube creator content creator on the side, I find enjoyment in watching franchise modes. Right now I'm keeping up with some YouTubers that I like to watch, that play MLB The Show every year, and does a franchise mode or does a road to the show mode. And and to be honest with you, I kind of watch more of that than I am watching just baseball. Or just baseball games, because I decide to utilize my time to check out how content creators are becoming better and how they're creating content, and I find enjoyment out of that. Or even for Formula One, I know the F1 franchise is written in video games is starting to become major right now, but at the same time, I can only watch so many Formula One races because they usually come on when I'm asleep. But when I'm watching F1 or a YouTube gamers, play F1, whether it's a career mode or just, online mode, and I could still have an understanding of who are the stars in the sports, how are the cars are manufactured, and just the management side of a team. And and at times, you kind of do learn a little bit or pick up a few things about a particular sport if you're watching someone play it on or live stream it on YouTube. As at first, I'll say for sports that I don't watch a ton, or maybe don't do keep up with as much, say golf. PGA Tour made by EA. That was one of the games that I think I played some PGA Tour growing up. I think I bought one copy one year. I think it was when it was Tiger Woods PGA Tour. That's when they had Tiger Woods back on the cover. And I learned about the stars of golf. That I don't watch a ton of golf, just in my own time. But if I'm playing PGA Tour or PGA 2K, then I'll learn about the stars. I'll go check them out. I'll see what their stats are, and then that's where I can start to pick up on a few things. And I think that's the one thing that is helping young people still stay engaged with sports, even with the rise and just the instant accessibility of highlight clips that we see on social media on a day-to-day basis. But I just want to talk about how with the sports leagues that actually don't have a sports game title out currently, and this has been a really big concern of mine, especially with me being a NASCAR guy, huge NASCAR guy. I mean, my favorite NASCAR games growing up, that I played the mess out of. I remember NASCAR 2005 Chase for the Cup. It was made by EA. That was a fun game. Like, oh my gosh. Like, if I had a PS2, I would literally go find the $60 copy that's on Amazon at the moment, buy it, and then just play it and relive out like my childhood back in the mid 2000s. Or even Dirt to Daytona for NASCAR. That was a fun game back then. But the one thing that I've been noticing is that in recent years, the NASCAR games that have been being released, they haven't really been hitting the same, like, especially back when EA had the development rights for the NASCAR video game franchise series. And there's been a lot of changes. Like, there's not a consistent gaming developer that's going to invest the money to make a NASCAR game, which I think in some ways is kind of hurting the NASCAR gaming console community in some ways. And you could go on YouTube and see what people are saying about it. But I know with the way that racing games in particular are starting to become marketed, it has a lot to do with sim racing. I know during the pandemic back in 2020, sim racing became a huge deal because nobody could go to the racetrack or anything like that. So, and the one thing to keep them, focused on just mastering their craft when it came to racing overall was they would hop on a simulator. I know if you've followed me in like my past podcast projects, I did a interview with Raja Karuf, who's a current NASCAR driver in the NASCAR Truck Series, and his upbringing through racing, it wasn't like the guys that are competing at the Cup Series where they had funding from their parents or they grew up racing a go-kart or racing a street stock. I mean, Raja's story began with iRacing. He used the simulator to help jumpstart his career in NASCAR, and that's just been like really the only thing that he was able to utilize when it came to trying to start a career in racing. And I feel like that there are some benefits if you are willing to invest that money or invest that time in trying to do sim racing, but you also have to think about the casual sports gaming fans or the casual NASCAR fans that want to have a NASCAR game that they can call their own. Because believe me, there's not too many copies out there like right now that are on the shelf that's worth spending the money to go buy, especially when like the gameplay hasn't really been as great in the recent copies that came out. So I think it's just also the fact of marketing that if you're trying to bring in casual fans, you need to go find or need to have casual entities that can help benefit reaching that demographic. And it's not just NASCAR either. There's also other sports out there that I feel are due to have a sports game. I mean, I could say that the Premier Lacrosse League. Like, I know lacrosse is a huge sport in the United States, and even starting to grow a little bit internationally. But I'm still kind of shocked, especially with the Premier Lacrosse League. Even though I know it's still relatively new, I still think that when it does come time for them to get a video game, I'm sure that game is going to sell very well because like you think about how much of a niche sport lacrosse is, how many kids are growing up playing it, especially with the upstart professional league that we have now for lacrosse, and just knowing that it's still taking its time and growing, guarantee when it comes time for them to make a game, it's going to sell. Or even, I know this is probably going to, be a shock to a lot of people, especially when they hear about the sport of boxing. But I want to take you guys back to, say maybe the late 2000s or the mid to late 2000s, where EA Sports created a boxing game called Fight Night. And I think there was Fight Night Round 1, Fight Night Round 2. I think there was a Fight Night Champion where it was based on a story mode and a play now mode. Or even, we have but I feel or even now we have copies UFC that EA produces. But at the same time, people still wish they could have that boxing game. As just thinking about the current titles that we have out now, because there was an article that I saw about the ranked sports gaming franchise that have been out there, and it was by thegamer.com, or at least that was the blog site that I found it from, where the top 10 best major sports gaming franchise that are ranked. 10 is NBA Live, produced by EA. EA Sports UFC was 9. WWE 2K by 2K was 8th. Out of the Park Baseball for like a PC game simulator was 7th. Pro Evolution Soccer by Konami was number 6. Madden NFL EA was number 5. NHL EA is number 4. MLB The Show by Sony was number 3. FIFA by EA is number 2, and number 1 was NBA 2K. And it's still like when you think about how popular those games are, especially with the popularity of the sports out there now, and even like for boxing. Like boxing is a world-renowned sport, but we still don't have a game out there that we can really claim to be a boxing game, or even a game that's can help young people know more about the stars of boxing anymore. I mean, it would be really cool to see either EA or some other gaming developer pick up a boxing game franchise that can be genuine to the current state of the sport, especially with all the stars that are being marketed now. It would be really cool to see Canelo Alvarez or Deontay Wilder in a boxing video game, and I'm sure they would want that too. That's more money there to the sport. And even to get back on the topic of motorsports, I know there's been some talks about how IndyCar, they're trying to break into the sports gaming world and trying to make a copy for IndyCar, because the last IndyCar game or video game that was released was back in 2005. So knowing that there's been almost over like a 10-year gap without us experiencing an IndyCar game, and knowing that IndyCar is kind of in this weird state where they can market well enough, like the product is marketable. It's because with IndyCar you get the best worlds of like both F1 and NASCAR. IndyCar, they race on ovals, they race on road courses, they race on street courses. So you're getting that combination all in one. You still have also the international stars. I mean, there's more international stars in IndyCar probably than there is in NASCAR, even Formula One, if we're being honest with ourselves. And I feel like there's a strong reach for that, especially with the diversity in racing styles and the different tracks that they go to. I know this past weekend, IndyCar was doing their annual Long Beach Grand Prix, where they were racing on a street course. And I know for NASCAR, they're starting to slowly catch up to the street course racing style, where they're going to be in Chicago in July doing the first ever street course race there. And but it would still be cool for people to have an IndyCar game and a NASCAR game and even a boxing game in their hands, so they can be able to grow the sport and gain that young demographic. Because if we think about it, our generation, or the young generation, whether you're talking to college students, like high school students, middle schoolers even, the one thing that we all can assimilate to is video games. Like, we all love video games. We all love the enjoyment of it. Like, I can go back to my days when, like, I would come home from school, get my homework done, and I just want to pop in MLB The Show or pop in NASCAR and just, play it all the way through the night and just find a way to relax. And what better way to learn more about a sport than to play it on, like, and have a virtual experience for it. Because if we think about it from an economic perspective, a 22-year-old like me can't always afford to go sit and to go to an NBA game and watch NBA players, or doesn't really have the time or the resources to go to a NASCAR race in another state, or go across overseas to Europe to go watch a Formula One race, when I know I could have the virtual experience to watch it from home, or at least be immersed in a gaming style from home. And I'm not saying I'm not not trying to put myself down and be like, I don't have the means to do that, because I'll soon have the means to do stuff like that. But I'm saying this from the perspective of a young person that's trying to find their way into learning more about a sport that's interested in them. I mean, like, a 15-year-old kid will find enjoyment in, playing 2K, learning about the NBA, the stars of the NBA. Will find enjoyment in, playing, Madden, learning about the start of football. Because I was actually talking to my buddy, my roommate Mark, and, the one way that he was able to find out more about Hall of Fame stats for NFL because he's a big NFL guy. He learned it from playing Madden, like with the all team rosters, like from like the throwback teams. Like he learned that from Madden. He learned about the history of the great players from the past on the Jets because he's a big Jets fan. And I kind of did the same thing with when it came to baseball. I learned about most of the history from for baseball from just playing video games. And and it was cool. Like, and I'm not that type of person that thinks video games are going to be educational for sports and everything. No, I'm just saying this from the mindset of what's it going to take for a sport to grow and to reach the casual fans. And you do that by making a sports gaming franchise. And I feel like now in 2023, it needs to be an obligation for sports leagues to create a sports gaming franchise to be able to get those young fans, especially if they know that their sport has potential to grow and reach a young audience, and also a growth in participation levels. So I just think with the way that the sports or that the video game world is going and that the sports world is going, we should be starting to see more of that. There at least should be an emphasis on trying to gain just that prowess in the sports world, because I think it's really cool. It is really cool to have a sports gaming franchise in the palm of your hands, and even just also just a little bit different from say the artificial gaming franchise. And this is more towards the racing games that I usually play, because aside from the NASCAR games, like me just being a car guy in general, like I grew up playing games like Gran Turismo, like a Need for Speed, even a little bit of Mario Kart here and there. I wasn't too big on Forza, but I do like the gaming style of Forza, growing up. But I think you still need to have that market of casual fans picking up a NASCAR game. And it is a little bit concerning to hear that NASCAR is delaying their next game, video game release to another year. Like, there has to be some consistency somewhere, or even for PGA Tour. Like, EA just released another game for this year, PGA Tour 2023, and they were taking a bit of a break from making the PGA games because 2K was trying to go after them and trying to get the developing rights. And there's also a bit of an arms war between developing companies going after these licensing titles for sports leagues. I know with Formula One, they're just getting back into having the licensing and development rights for with EA, because EA back in the early 2000s, they were producing the F1 games, but then F1 kind of went a little bit more independent with Codemasters, because Codemasters was the main developers for the game, but EA just wanted to have the title to be the title developer, just to oversee the operations, because they know the F1 game was going to sell well internationally. Same with FIFA. I mean, well, I probably won't be calling it FIFA anymore, because it was announced that later this year, or at least for the next FIFA title game, is actually going to be called. They're calling it something like EA Sports FC, which I think is not really the best title. I know that it's probably due to the whole deal with FIFA, and just with the stuff that they've been in politically, and like the World Cup stuff and everything like that. But I'll probably still going to call it FIFA at the end of the day, because historically that's how we've always known the game to be. And I knew when I was doing my research the other night to prepare for the episode, I was looking up different sports that had like just a game, but maybe wasn't as known. I came across this clip of a rugby sports game. It was Rugby 22. I can't tell you who the developer was. I know it wasn't EA, but how the game looked, it looked pretty good for what is it? No, it was also on PS5 too. So it was next gen, and those are the type of games that I would like to like know more about. You know, I like to be interested in like the sports that I don't watch a ton. Like, I'm gonna be honest, like I don't keep up with rugby a lot, or I don't even watch a rugby at all. But I would probably be more entitled to or more inclined to watch rugby if there was a game for it. I know EA Sports had the development rights for a rugby game back in the mid-2000s, just like how they did with every other sports game. And yeah, like, you know, I probably would have been a little bit more into rugby if I found out that there was a game for it. Yeah, and this also go a little bit more into the sports gaming franchise that have kind of taken a bit of a hard hit. I know with EA, it seemed like EA had the development rights for a lot of sports games. I mean, they had the licensing rights with the NBA, with MLB. You know, they still have with the NFL. Like Madden's probably not going to go anywhere anytime soon. And you know, the NHL. Like I hear the NHL games are pretty cool for hockey. But yeah, there's an arms race going on right now in the development world. I mean, especially with EA. Like EA are just starting to get back into producing the PGA Tour games, and I think that's definitely helping with trying to get more young people to get into golf. And I'm not saying that, you know, there aren't already a lot of young people that are watching or even playing golf. It's just the substance of having a golf video game is going to do wonders. I mean, because I feel that the increase of people that are watching the NBA had a lot to do with NBA Live, or has a lot to do with NBA 2K. Because you think about just the immersion aspect of wanting to play that game with a career mode or franchise mode, actually having that hands-on experience of what it's like to be in the NBA or have some kind of association with the NBA. People really dig that stuff. And it's great that we have it. Because I'm gonna say this. Video games are the future. Especially sports video games. And one way for sports leagues to grow their young audience has to be through video games. You're either doing it through esports, you're either doing it through making your own sports gaming franchise, which is already happening. But you still have to use that as the tool to grow externally. Let's think about all the YouTube streamers that we see that run the franchise modes. I know I'm probably repeating myself here, but this is all valid information. Think about the franchise modes, the career modes, the online modes, everything that's involved with what kind of content that these YouTubers and Twitch streamers are putting out. And I actually find enjoyment of this. I think they're starting to get a lot more creative now because they know that it's a hot market. It's a hot market to be a game streamer, and knowing that that's one way that sports leagues can capitalize on on trying to get external marketing through game streamers. I came across this one clip of it was Jordan Poole and a YouTuber by the name of Stacks Montana, and like, you know, Stacks Montana, I've actually watched watched his channel here and now. And he's big on like the NBA 2K My Career series. Like he has a character that he has produced or reproduced in every 2K game that has been released. I think since, I don't know, like 2013. Like, so dating back to 2K13, he's done a My Career with Cameron Baker, the player that he named for, you know, his My Career player, his My Career content, and like just seeing him play against Jordan Poole and just, you know, just for fun. I mean, that's the stuff that's gonna happen a lot. You know, like NBA players, like, they get a kick out of playing 2K themselves. They get a kick out of knowing what their ratings are gonna be before the season starts. The same could be said about MLB The Show. Like what MLB does great with, you know, their sports gaming franchise, MLB The Show, is that they just make the experience a lot more immersive. And there's even like this cool new feature that they had for this year's game for MLB The Show 23, where, you get all the standard stuff. You get the play now, you get the franchise mode, you get the road to the show stuff. But they also created a mode to where you can play as former players from the Negro Leagues, which I think is very cool. And I was actually watching the A's game on Saturday when it was Jackie Robinson Day, and also it was just want to pay homage to Jackie Robinson as well, just for all that he was able to do for the game and just breaking the color barrier in baseball. And I wouldn't be playing had played baseball or had been broadcasting baseball if it wasn't for him. And I was very fortunate to broadcast the St. John's game on Saturday on Jackie Robinson Day. So just want to throw that out there. But it was. But he did bring it up of how it's not just you having to go in and having the chance to play as the Negro League legends, but also just learning about the history and the storylines that was a part of the lives of the Negro League players from back then. And that's how people are starting to pick up video games. This is why it's important that every sports league needs a video game franchise. Not just for the joy of video games, but also just for the information, the history, the excitement, and even just trying to find ways to intrigue people to get into your sport. Because I guarantee you, the sports leagues that are still in that stage where they don't have any consistency in title releases for their gaming franchise, they're going to need one very soon, very fast. Yeah, this is a good time. This is a really good time to be someone that's coming up in sports and growing up, just getting into sports gaming. Because, I'm telling you, it's our future. It's what's going to be one of the things that's going to be a part of our lifestyle, to where we find enjoyment in sports gaming. Even if we're not in a position to experience the real thing, we can still come close enough to get into the real thing. But yeah, I'm really excited for it. I'm really excited. I'm looking forward to it, and hopefully, as gaming begins to become more evolve, if there's more evolving in video games, hopefully we can see some more realistic, more real immersion, and all the stuff that we see. But yeah, this is gonna be like a bit of a short episode. I wanted to keep it relatively short, but I thought I did touch a lot on everything involved in just the sports gaming world. But with every episode, I like to close out with the sports jobs of the week, just to keep everybody, all the OFPs out there, informed about what's available in the job market right now for if you're trying to look for a job in sports, and especially you tuning into this podcast for mentorship, guidance, and awareness about the sports industry. So there is currently a stadium operations coordinator position open right now for the Los Angeles Rams, and you can find that on Teamwork Online. So if you're looking to get into stadium operations, definitely check that out. And also, speaking of the Premier Lacrosse League, they are currently looking for a social media coordinator. So if anybody has an interest in the game of lacrosse and is also very, very well talented in social media, you can find that position on Teamwork Online. And there's also a social media coordinator position for USA Baseball. Yeah, USA Baseball, the national team, or even there's also the overseer of baseball in the United States. So they have a social media coordinator position open right now, also on Teamwork Online. And lastly, they're looking for a content producer for the PGA Tour. So anybody has a strong interest in golf and content producing, you could find that job on Teamwork Online. So that's going to wrap it up here for the Off-Field Players podcast. Definitely want to thank everybody for tuning in, and hopefully you were able to get something out of it. And just keep on track of the episodes that are soon to come in the future, as they get closer to graduation. But don't worry, after graduation, this podcast will still be active, as I will still be continuing to grow the OFP family. I just want to say thank you again for tuning in, and if you watched all the way, really all the way to the end, I really appreciate it. And make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share this podcast with anybody that you know. This podcast can be heard on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor, and the video version of this episode and my other episodes can be found on YouTube. So yeah, definitely make sure to keep supporting the Off-Field Players podcast, and let's grow the OFP family together. So my name is Phil Paul. So I want to say take care, stay safe, and as always, make sure to achieve what you believe.